Hello, everybody. Welcome to Roundtable, coming to you live from Beijing. I'm He Yang. For today's lineup, we have someone, our audience. Yes, you. Hello. You've said that her voice is sweet as honey, and I'd say her personality too. Huang Shen.
Wow. You're so sweet today and every day.
Well, it's great to have people that you actually like and enjoy hanging out with on the show. What am I implying? Well, anyhow, I'm really happy that aside from the very lovely Huang Shen, we have somebody super special back on the show, a longtime friend of Roundtable. Oh, I can almost feel the tear works. Liu Yan!
Hello.
Welcome back, my friend!
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for the lovely welcome and that lovely introduction. Yeah, it's been more than 4 years since I was last on the show.
Yeah, and you were on the first ever Roundtable debut episode almost 9 years ago.
Yes, that was back in March 2012.
Wow.
And that was in 2012?
Yeah.
Gosh, that was
more than 9 years ago.
That is crazy. And
so next year is our 10 years anniversary.
It's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening. And
you got to do something about that.
Well, if you guys, our listeners, think that we should do something about it, then maybe you can chip in with some amazing ideas. It's got to be super amazing for us to, take it up and carry it on and see what we can do about it, because 10 years would be a big deal. And also, just for the 9 years or so far, and then, gosh, so much has happened. And Liu Yan, I know it's impossible to, say these things in a couple of words, but we've kind of lost you, and then you're back, and then maybe we get to see you a little bit more often on Roundtable for the foreseeable future. Is that happening?
Well, let's say, for the time being, it's happening.
Ooh,
also, for the
yes.
record, I don't think you guys have ever lost me, because my other show, 英语1分钟, has always been there.
Yeah. And you can catch that on the Easy FM app.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's prominently featured, I might add.
Of course. It's something that is short and sweet, but packed with meat.
Yes.
And say it again, where do we find it? Where can we key in the exact title so we can find that audio?
Okay, if you just click on learning.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the first thing you see. 英语1分钟.
You got it. And also, Liu Yan and I were both on a show called The Bridge. From time to time, Liu Yan appears more often than I do, for sure. And you can also catch Bebe on that show with John St. Augustine, our esteemed colleague from the U.S. And that's another podcast/radio show you might be interested in. And it's just great to have friends back on Roundtable. It's almost like high school reunion in a way. Although we never went to high school together, but it's just...
Liu Yan, she's my teacher and my mentor, I would say, because I remember the days. I'm super nervous today because when I just joined CRI and took my first broadcasting test, and Liu Yan 老师 was one of the judges there sitting in the room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
he's
remember
my
those
teacher.
vividly. Yeah, I remember those vividly. And apparently I had the reputation of being super serious. Well, in fact, I'm so not like that. So
Really?
no need to be nervous at all, Huang Shen. You're doing fine.
Yeah, and
Oh,
also
wow.
Huang Shen, after all these years of, hard work and everything, and now you're on the show with, the judge that, started your career with, and that's quite amazing, and I love stories like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys crack me up because you keep using the word judge. What is this? Like CRI's Got Talent?
Well, we are looking for talent.
Yeah.
That's what we are doing right now. Also, if you're interested in working for us, with us, feel free to send in your CV, and also there's a CGTN CMG Media Challenger talent campaign that's happening right now too. So, send in a 3-minute video that showcases and encapsulates your amazing talent, I suppose. And the future is filled with possibilities. And here we are, having Huang Shen and Liu Yan and myself, He Yang, in the studio. And good as always to have you, our dear listeners, with us. We have some fascinating topics for discussion today and every day on today's program. What do modern and independent women value the most? A new report says it's probably not marriage. Solo home ownership. It's for the ladies. A rising demographic of women born in the 1990s are buying their own property. Well, what does that say about the real estate market and gender dynamic in this country? Also, on the show, illustrated picture books are one of the fastest growing publishing categories in printed books, and it's mostly moms that are buying them, apparently. Or we'll get into that and what explains the appeal of picture books. You can find us on Apple Podcast at Roundtable China. Subscribe, rate, and review us. If you like us, give us a 5-star review. Leave us a message that says what exactly you like, love, or not like so much about the show. That's fine too. Constructive criticism is always welcome. And of course, we will read them and share them on the show. So let us know what you think. But first, on today's Roundtable. The real estate market in China is currently going through a gender shift as more women purchase homes compared to what it used to be, a male-dominated market. Industry watchers believe that this is an indication that females are more educated and earning more in major cities. Well, Huangshen, could you break it down for us a bit? Dissect the statistics on women and home ownership.
Of course. And nowadays, women, especially young women, are becoming the main buyers of houses. In early March, Beike Research Institute released a report on women's housing status in 2021, which showed that in last year, 2020, women in 30 key cities in China announced for nearly 48% of house purchases and around 1.9 percentage points higher than that in 2017. The report also indicated that the income level of female home buyers is higher than that of women who do not own a house. To be more specific, among the women interviewed by the survey, some 63% of women who do not own a property have a monthly income of less than 6,000 yuan, which is around $1,000. And for the female homeowners who they are less than 30% of them have a monthly income of less than 6,000 yuan. And according to another report released by andrewke.com and 58.com, two of the largest real estate transaction websites in China, it shows that 21.2% of women born in the 1990s said they are planning to buy homes on their own. So this means that they don't rely on the support from their family, like their parents or their spouse, to purchase a house of their own, and which is already higher than the average. And in addition, around 82% of women polled are planning to set up a business in 5 years, and nearly 40% did reveal that they intend to buy a home within 2 years.
That's a lot of stats.
Yeah.
What's your reading into that, Liu Yan?
Okay, like you said, some interesting statistics there, but I think the first one that really stood out to me is the fact that less than 30% of female homeowners have a monthly income of less than 6,000 yuan. That was really surprising, because I thought for sure if you live in metropolises like Beijing or Shanghai, if you want to consider buying a house, you gotta at least have a job paying for like 10,000 or more each month. So this 6,000 or even less really just floored me to some certain extent. So I guess the fact here says that more and more women have this attitude. It's like, it doesn't matter how much I earn. I just want that security right now.
Interesting.
Even if I don't have the financial ability to do that just yet, I would do whatever it takes, whether to borrow money from my parents or to think of some other methods, maybe borrowing money from my friends. I will try to get my name on that property first and foremost. So that's my first reading into this particular statistic.
Well, do you think that possibly these people are buying a bit too much, biting a bit too much than they can chew, in the sense that we all know that paying for mortgage and ultimately claiming ownership of property, it could take years, and it is really sort of tying yourself to a huge financial goal that every month you're paying for, and that's a huge decision.
Well, it seems likely that people will just immediately jump to the conclusion that they're trying to bite off more than they can chew. But I don't necessarily think so, because I think when it comes to buying property, I believe most people have already thought over the entire issue carefully. At least they must have had a decent conversation with their parents. So they have weighed the pros and cons, and they do know that if they go on this journey, they would have to pay monthly mortgage fees and stuff like that. So I'm sure they are ready for the long haul. They know it's not a short sprint, it's a long haul.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just spur of the moment kind of decision. So I wouldn't say it's too risky.
Yeah, so what do you think explains this social phenomenon that recently we've seen articles written about it, and also, stats showing from different aspects, actually, that home ownership is something that it seems like the assumption here is that women who are not married and also, in that age bracket, they're
Or born in the 1990s.
Yeah, and they're doing it themselves.
Yeah, I think one of the indicator from when does I think like for the women, definitely it depends on their priority in life. They put their security and they put their preference at a first place when they make the decision of purchasing a house. I definitely think they are searching for security from properties rather than marriage, or just rather than other material conditions. And I could see that now. This based on more and more young women, they are purchasing the house on their own. It's an indicator and showing that the rise of women's socioeconomic status in the country, along with the social development. And according to the traditional mindset, it seems like men, they are the breadwinners in the house, and usually for women, they are trying to fit in that mother material and being an understanding wife and a loving mom, and trying to assist your husband and bringing up the children and depend on a house provided by your husband. But nowadays we have seen women, especially in major cities, they are growing up and they're taking high paid jobs. Maybe they can earn more even than their male counterparts, and they can enjoy that financial freedom and independence based on their own capability. And in this way, they definitely want to seek for the security provided by a house or just as property. And other thing is that when you move to a new city, for example, if you are from a relatively smaller city and you want to settle down in a bigger city, I'm pretty sure if you own a house, it will give you more motivation to make the decisions like, I want to stay in the city and working hard and having my home, and I can really call this city, which is not my hometown, as my home.
Yeah, I think Huangshan made a very good point, because if you just keep renting, it doesn't give you that base feeling. You're still groundless. You don't feel like you belong anywhere. But if you do purchase a home, even if you're still trying to get the payment on its way, at least psychologically speaking, you feel like, okay, this is where I belong because my root is here now. So I think that psychological telling is very important.
Yeah, definitely. And there's also just something, I think, plain and simple, that if you are a person, regardless of men or women, living in a big city and have witnessed how the housing price has gone up in the last 2 decades or so, you would think that instead of paying monthly rent every month, owning it or paying that monthly mortgage, and then after X amount of years you own the thing, is a far better way to spend your money and keep its value. And then at the end of the day, you own property, and that becomes like a really viable and smart investment decision as well. So there's also that aspect of things. And for the ladies out there who seem possibly not going to settle down with anybody immediately. And then why not? You are a smart person, you have the means, and work hard towards it. Then homeownership is definitely one of the things that people are considering. And some people have actually already gone up to like achieve this goal. And also another thing, I would just like to say a couple more words regarding what Huang Shan said earlier. I mean, yeah, this seems to almost paint this brilliant picture of female empowerment and an advancement in female status and all that. And I am forever, always celebrating the achievement of fellow ladies out there. But I think there is also the danger if we drum up that too much to overlook the fact that according to figures, women still earn at least 20% less than men in this country. Like, we're not looking at monthly payments as such because it's kind of difficult to find the exact figure, but just looking at overall salary earnings and all that. So there's still the gap. And also, that's one thing. And another thing is what Huang Shan mentioned earlier about the so-called traditional sort of family household dynamic of men going to earn money and women staying home and raising kids, not earning. That's not the Chinese family that I know. Ever since the founding of People's Republic of China, Chairman Mao said, women, hold up half of the sky. I'm literally doing that right now, holding up my arms. And so for someone like me who's a younger millennial, what I've witnessed along the way as I grew up was like most families have double breadwinners. And then, so it blows my mind that within the development of this country in the last 20 years or so, gradually women have been retreating back to the family. Well, you can say that's more, options for women, that you can be a housewife or you can be a working mom or working lady. That's fine. But yeah, there's just this interesting, I think, very different perception towards what the gender roles are supposed to be in a family in China in the last 70 or so years, as opposed to, what the Western, like US, UK, stereotypical look at the family arrangement. So yeah, ladies, it seems like now you're, back in the force and trying to own property in that. So, well, Liu-Yan, do you have something to say about, just this journey that the female have taken over the last few decades?
Well, first of all, He Yang, I have to say I'm just really tickled by the fact that every time we're talking about anything that empowers women, you get extremely enthusiastic. I love it. And also, I'm not surprised at all because, like you said, you are a very independent millennial. And I'm not a millennial. I'm much older. I'm a Gen Xer. So from my generation, also the people who were older than I was, I guess we were indeed brought up on the idea that men were supposed to provide for the family, while women were supposed to, care for kids and that kind of stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept called collective unconscious.
Ooh.
It was
Say a bit more about that?
Yeah, it was developed by the famous late psychologist Carl Jung, who was a disciple of Sigmund Freud. Anyway, this idea basically means that the deeply held belief that was buried in the collective unconscious, i.e. the society, was so powerful that it was embedded in each and every one of us from an evolutionary standpoint. So even if you try not to be like that, that will always be subconsciously in your mind to some extent. So I guess even if, like you said, you are a very independent woman, maybe to some extent, those stereotypical images will still be lodged in your mind somewhere. So I guess for a lot of modern day women, maybe that's the case as well. So even if out in the open, they will say, I don't belong in the kitchen. I can do my own thing. I'm like, one of those Destiny's Child songs. Tell me what you think about me. Buy my own diamonds and buy my own rings. They could be like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when they are forced to make a choice, maybe they will still put their children first. So I guess that explains the situation to some extent.
Yeah.
So to fight that collective unconscious is extremely difficult. On top of that, you also have to think that, like you said, women still earn much less than men, and it's just not a fair society overall speaking. So to be able to buy a house is still not easy. So when you do have the choice that you are in a happy marriage and your husband is very supportive, so it's just very natural to fall back into the traditional way, because also tradition has a very powerful hold on people as well.
Yeah.
So the tradition is men take care of houses while women take care of babies and family.
And also, just to say something about, those mortgage plans that's taken up by men and women in a marriage, we don't know whether the female is contributing to the monthly payment as well or not, because there are a lot of women who are working moms too out there. And this is just fascinating, trying to figure out these family decisions of people. And also, at the surface of it, it seems like, women are earning more and are making these huge financial decisions for themselves. Great. But there's also something very salient here, but not put to the center. That is, maybe there's still a lot of support that's coming from family, from mom and dad. As a young working person, most of us aren't able to make that much to... Just the thought of paying for a mortgage plan just makes me want to go to sleep. But so there's still this family support that is involved here. And how do you think this is quite common or whatnot?
Yeah, according to the same report, over 45% of Chinese female homeowners over 30 years old, they have received financial support from their parents. And as we mentioned earlier, like the traditional gender norms, it seems like the tradition expects men to provide homes. So the mentality is definitely shifting over the previous years, and more parents, they are the real decision makers, I would say, in buying a house. So they want to provide their daughter a home in a city, and they can enjoy the freedom to choose their career or their spouse, like just based on their preferences. And I think now it's a good sign. It means like in China, we have seen the parents, they treat daughter and son equally. And there's another really subtle change from the marriage law, also encourages the girls and out there to purchase their own house, which means like China made amendments in the marriage law back in 2019. And according to the new regulations, so no one in the marriage can get a home bought by the other side through the marriage, which means if you purchase this house before the marriage, it's yours. It won't be shared by you and your spouse after, even if you divorce. So this means more and more women, they prefer to get their name on that house before the marriage.
Wow, it sounds like marriage is a fickle thing.
Yeah, but I have to say that sounds like a very practical thing to do, because with this marriage law amendment, it basically sends the message that as long as you buy the house before you're married, you're taken care of, basically, because you will always be able to have the property to your name. And I think it's just a smart decision. So, like RuPaul would probably say, the
drag queen of the world.
Yeah, like he would say, girl, you got to put yourself first. If you don't love yourself, then how do you love anybody else?
Exactly. And I'll also say, boy, love yourself first, because if you don't love yourself, who else is going to love you? Right? I mean, but there seems to be a paradox here. If we're all loving ourselves and putting ourselves first, who's going to get married and have kids? Because you got to put somebody else first.
Oh, I don't think there's a contradiction there.
All right.
You can love yourself and also have the capacity to love somebody else.
Gosh, that's
Wow.
just so much in love, and that I think I need to do a lot of exercise and building to make enough room for everyone, it seems. So no wonder.
We all do. It's a lifelong lesson, a lifelong journey.
Yeah,
That's why we're
marriage.
put on this earth to experience this journey, to experience love.
And that journey could possibly start from listening to Roundtable and our discussion today. You're listening to Roundtable. Coming up, more interesting discussion. Don't go away.
Informed opinion and heated debate. Find out what's got China talking and join us for your roundtable discussion.
You're listening to Roundtable with myself, He Yang, joined by Huang Shan and Liu Yan. It's Liu Yan in the house. Hey!
Yay!
Good to have you back, and always wonderful to see Huang Shan. Because, yeah, like we exchanged, like,
Eye contact.
yeah, and facial expressions and stuff. And she's really cool and smart. And also, this lineup is something that I just never would have dreamt of. And Luyan, now it's your time to say a few words.
Yeah. I haven't exactly dreamed of that either. I mean, I have been listening to Roundtable forever. Even after I left the show, I still kept listening to it. So I'm actually very familiar with Huang Shan and her voice because, like I said, I almost listen to it every day. So it's very interesting to be back here and actually share the microphones with her.
Yeah.
Because last time when I was still here, I don't think we ever crossed paths in terms of, hosting a show or anything like that. So this is a brand new experience and definitely very exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting for me just being in this seat and also seeing these familiar faces and exchanging friendly smiles. And although, we don't like see each other that often,
Right.
but it's almost like, the minute the countdown ends and the show begins and we are in the zone and we
Yes.
know exactly what to do, what you're thinking, when to pick it up, when to, burst out laughing. These things we don't plan them. It just happens, and that's
Yeah.
just the
spontaneity.
beauty.
Spontaneity is the best.
Yeah,
Just
the
like,
show.
a couple of minutes ago when I just haphazardly mentioned RuPaul. Everybody burst out laughing. I just really enjoy that kind of camaraderie. Yeah.
Yeah, and wonderful to have you guys on the show. And great to have you listening to our show. I have been checking out the comments and messages that we get from all platforms. And apparently, a few of you mentioned that you listen to us during your commute. Great. And a lot of you listen to us before you go to sleep. So you're in bed listening to us. I should not leave that long pause there. I'm saying that, I just feel really honored and grateful that if we get to be, the last thing that sends you off to dreamland, then that's cool. I think that's a privilege not many people get. So I appreciate it so much. And thank you for supporting us. A way to get in contact with us is via our podcast platform, that is Apple Podcast at Roundtable China, and also sending us a voice memo or a voice question to ezfmroundtable at foxmail.com. Coming up on today's show, illustrated picture books, graphic novels, comics, and Japanese manga. I love them all. Your opinion doesn't matter here, He Yang. Okay, so what's the appeal of picture books? And how do you feel if you were taught Kung Fu in elementary school? Yeah. I don't do Kung Fu. I don't know if you guys do. I've been dying to find out and, of course, hear your insight. And now on Roundtable, as we continue our discussion. Illustrated picture books, or 绘本, have become a publisher's darling in recent years. In 2020, for the very first time, its sales volume overtook the children's literature genre in e-commerce giant JD's digital bookshop. So What exactly is a picture book, by the way? Or the illustrated
Illustrated.
picture books that's getting a lot of attention?
Yeah, the picture books are just books that tell stories mainly by painting with only a few words for preschool children. And they first appeared in Western countries like America or France or these European countries. So in the China's book market, I would say the concept we are familiar with when we were kids, probably the thing we call 连环画. I would translate that as comic strip, and it's just before the emergence of illustrated picture books. So some private publishing companies began to introduce and publish the foreign excellent picture books since 2003. So now in the Chinese market, it's more, we probably will see more imported picture books rather than our original creations.
Luyan, did you used to read 连环画 or these
小人书.
小人书? You have to be a 小人, a little person to read it, I guess. Well, did you?
I wouldn't say too much, but then I'm just me because I'm not your typical average kid.
You were reading 唐诗三百首
No,
from
not that
infant.
kind either. I'm just more interested in stories that are purely text-based. Because, everybody is different. I like text. I like writing. And I love language in general. So for me, it makes more sense to just focus on text-only books. But I can fully understand why picture books have this giant appeal. Because with pictures, certain things are much easier to imagine. Because if you just look at the text, then you have to use like deduction, induction, and logic thinking and that kind of stuff. And that may be too difficult for children of a certain age. So it definitely has its appeal, and I can understand that 100%.
Yeah, I'm in a camp of picture books because especially when I was a kid, maybe when I was back in primary school, it's more accessible for me. I would say it can encourage me to learn more, especially when I was trying to learn English. The picture book I liked the most when I was a kid was about my favorite cartoon character, Pooh Bear. And it was a picture book about his story in a 100-acre woods. And he was trying to differentiate some words with the similar or the same pronunciations. I still remember one story in that book is when the Pooh Bear, he wanted to bake something and he wanted to use the flour. And he asked all his friends, where can I find my flour? And his friends like Piglet or Eeyore or Tiger just gave him the real flour in the grass. On the land, on the ground. So, but actually what he's looking for was the flour to make bakeries. So that back then my English proficiency was not that great, and you have to have this kind of enlightened reading material to trigger your enthusiasm for learning a totally different language.
Yeah, and also the aesthetics of all the characters in the Pooh Bears series, and also many of these illustrated picture books out there is just so beautiful. It's sometimes like an art form of its own, and it's really just pleasing to the eye. And I remember when I was little, I used to just be so drawn to the beautiful illustration, and then, a few words scattered here and there, sure, I'll read them, but it's just so pretty to look at, and that was appealing for a child. And also just a little thing about the Pooh Bears, like, when we were little reading these books, we sort of understood it from the surface level, but it's until we become grown-ups or have read more books in text do we find out that actually there's deeper meaning to a lot of these arrangements, like the Pooh Bear story and the friends he has. Like they're all, each of them are embodiment to a particular psychological
Problem.
Issues,
I would say.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just fascinating, right? Who would have thought that for children's book would the author sort of bake in these sometimes dark, sometimes complicated imaginations and even issues to it. So, but you can only realize that once you're like older.
Looking back. Yeah.
When you're grown up.
I'm not surprised by that at all. It's just like those movies. All the best movies, all the best stories are animated films. Because if you just act like, oh, those are just for kids, I'm not interested in those, I'm sorry, you're missing out on the best stuff. So sometimes it's very similar when it comes to picture books. You can definitely tell very interesting and also very educational, sometimes even important message kind of stories via picture books.
Right.
And also, just now, I think you guys inadvertently touched on some very interesting points. Number one, you said that sometimes those pictures are just beautiful to look at and it will give you this warm and fuzzy feeling. I think that's very, very important because when you do have that feeling, naturally your interest will be piqued. And I always say, interest is the best teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as
So
you
true.
have interest, you will be able to keep reading no matter what.
Yeah.
So if you do want the kids gradually to move into a direction where more words are used, so that's definitely a great hook to get them interested in the first step. And also, Huangshan mentioned that the Pooh Bear picture books are a very good way to learn foreign languages because when you don't have the capacity to understand the language itself, maybe picture books are another kind of device to get you hooked. Right?
Yeah.
Because with pictures, you can certainly understand what's going on. And then if you look at the accompanying words, maybe just a few and maybe very easy words, and then you will think, oh, so this is what they're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, with the foreign language, you definitely have that pre-set up difficulty to begin with. Then you have to find a way to cross that obstacle. So with pictures, that just becomes so much easier.
Right.
So,
Well, speaking of picture books and learning English, I remember when I was 7, and what my favorite book was a picture book called Sloppy Kisses. And I learned the word sloppy from that book. It's about a family of pigs, and they're cute pigs. Cute, okay?
Have to be cute.
Now when you look back, it might be a little freaky actually because they're all like wearing human clothes and stuff and have the normal like family dynamic and the morals and stuff now when you look back. But anyhow, that book is a perfect demonstration and teaching for kids about how to use the different tenses. Yeah, so really simple sentence. So like present tense, past tense, and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not great at grammar. I only know how to use it. I don't know how to like analyze it. But I remember when I was really young back then, learning a little bit about grammar through that book because it's also really pretty to look at. And now when I look back, weird story, but sure. Maybe you can check it out or, to your liking, that kind of thing. But also we mentioned something about the illustration. So for these books, there's little words, mostly illustration. And actually, it wasn't a selling point particularly in the eyes of parents originally. Because, yes, if I am frugal, stingy parents, I wouldn't want to buy a book that has a ton of words or at least a comfortable amount of words for my kid to learn and master instead of just looking at pictures. It's like a waste of money. And that was kind of the psyche, the thoughts, mindset set of parents about 10 years ago when these books first kind of become a thing in the market. And how's that changed?
Wow. Nowadays, in terms of the investment in the education of kids, wow, I think parents are super generous. They don't care about how much it costs.
But how have they realized the value of this particular type of book that's filled with pictures?
I think they're influenced by the Western educational methods to some extent because now we are living in the information era and we have more access and to the information shared in the world. So many people, they just believe the picture books are the best way to trigger the interest for these preschool kids and to pursue their passion of learning. But the sad thing I want to point out in here is that we have in the Chinese market, we have seen more imported picture books rather than our own like original creations. That is pretty sad because now for the publishing houses, they admitted that it's more cost effective to import rather than create or develop your own stories. Because for an original children's picture book, according to ChinaNews.com, no matter it's the paperback edition or the hardcover edition, the tax rate is around 10%, and the printing cost accounts for almost 40% of the total price. So it's not a very good business opportunity. And in China, we have to admit that the big environment for these maybe content providers, content creators of children's picture books is not very encouraging and promising. And earlier we talked about the harsh environment for translators. Probably they're not making a very decent salaries at the same time. So how you can motivate the painters and these illustrators and to form their original work? That's the problem we have to solve in the near future.
Right, and it's definitely a pity. Whenever I hear stories like that, I can understand it from a logistical point because it is, after all, a business and you have to make money. So if the current model, whatever you're trying to do, doesn't bring more money in, of course you're going to resort to something that does bring money in. But at the same time, I just have to say, because picture books have their value and they are vitally important for children's development. So maybe sometimes certain people need to change their mindset. Even if you don't see the money coming in the short term, you should still consider doing this just for the benefit of the children.
Or, okay, let me put this maybe more realistically for, just common people who sort of need to earn some money, I suppose. But, okay, what about this? If you are someone that is really good at drawing or illustration and you have a really cool storyline in your head, and then maybe this can be something of fulfilling your own dream of a thing, and then I think we do need more participants in the industry. And, after you just think about this, maybe this can be the dream project. And it could be something that that becomes a milestone in your lifetime. And maybe you'll take off. I mean, that'd be cool. If not, do something else later. But this is very particular. You need to be good at drawing, the arts, and also be able to tell a really good story. So very interesting in that sense. And you mentioned something along the lines that this is really good for kids, reading picture books. Why is that?
Because there was this extremely popular psychologist, Jean Piaget.
Yes!
Yes, and he had this very influential theory, which is called the 4 stages of cognitive development. That's why I keep saying it's good for children's development, because according to this theory, every kid goes through 4 different stages. There's no exception whatsoever. So the first one is a sensory motor stage. That's from 0 to 2 years old. The second stage is pre-operational stage, 2 to 7. The third is concrete operational stage, 7 to 11. And the fourth and the final one is formal operational stage, 12 and up. So for most toddlers and the kids we are talking about, the picture books are targeted, I think they are in the second group, which is the pre-operational stage from 2 to 7 years old. And for children in this particular stage, they begin to think symbolically, and they also learn to use pictures to represent objects. So picture books can definitely help them visualize and do better when it comes to representation, because we keep saying, representation matters. That's why, all the minorities need to be portrayed in stories and need to be included in books, because representation matters. So once again, because pictures can help children of this stage better represent, and that's why it's important. Also, children at this particular stage tend to be egocentric. That's not a dig on them. It doesn't mean that they don't care about other people's feelings. It simply means that they don't have the capacity to understand things from other people's perspective. For example, if you just look at the computer, you're sitting here and you know that you're looking at the back of the computer, and the kid is sitting over there and he or she sees the front of the computer. And if you asked him or her to describe the computer, he or she will only say the computer looks like the front. He or she will never be able to say it looks like the back. So with picture books, that can be amended.
So it's almost like 3D now.
Yes.
Well, but it's actually only 2D. So that wasn't a very good analogy, sorry. But to get a more whole-rounded understanding of what is being conveyed here.
Yeah.
So,
and also, people at this stage, while they are getting better at language, generally speaking, they don't have a large enough vocabulary just yet.
Yeah.
And also, they tend to think in concrete terms. So with picture books, what you see is what you get. So it definitely
and so many other things in life.
It definitely makes things easier for them. And this goes back to what I said earlier. This can keep their interest, because if things are too difficult, you will lose their interest. And this is certainly not a good thing if you want to keep them hooked, if you want to keep them studying.
Very interesting. And just after listening to that, and you mentioned being egocentric and stuff, and sort of riding the learning curve and things, and I can't help but think of about myself, who is an adult, and I don't think I'm all that better. Because I love graphic novels. Yeah. I still love Japanese manga. Not a big fan of comics because please don't at me or send me emails. I don't really like superheroes. Like, the Marvel universe. Ooh. Okay, let's make it a little bit more vague than that. Just, muscly guys wearing like underwear and, just really clingy outfit does not appeal to me at all. And especially the way they portray female superheroes. It's like, and Asian superheroes, in the making. And I'm just like, okay, it's almost like first dibs all gone, and then now it's like, politically correctness, and then get these people in, and it's really intentional, and it just doesn't do the work for me.
And also kind of forced.
Yes.
Nobody liked forced representation. We all like organic representation. That's why it goes back to the keyword representation over and over again.
Yeah. But also, as readers and audience, we're just really picky too. The movie studios and the comic authors are like, okay, we've made this effort for you guys and you're still not satisfied. Yeah, I'm not satisfied. So basically my point here is with these illustration of books and publications, I would think it goes broader than for toddlers, but also for adults, who are not afraid to admit,
That's completely true. I'm a huge fan of graphic novels and graphic books in general as well. And since you are interested in anything feminism, I would like to recommend Sarah Anderson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, have you heard of her?
Yes.
Yeah.
But say more about her in case other people have not heard about her works.
Okay. I got to know her via her first book, Adulthood is a Myth, because I'm very interested in growing up, finding out who you are, that kind of theme. So that's the one that got me hooked. But then she also had a few books about being girly and owning it, which is perfect for anyone interested in feminism. And also this other one called Herding Cats. So if you're interested in pets, that would be a safe bet. And another graphic book by a different person is called Persepolis. Maybe. I can't remember the English title off the top of my head, but the Chinese translation is 我在伊朗长大. Yeah, so it was also one of the best graphic novels or graphic books I have ever read because it taught me so much. So I'm just saying, like you said, it's definitely not just for kids. It's for adults as well.
Yeah, and so what's the difference between graphic novels and illustrations for, picture books for kids?
Picture books. Graphic novels tend to be novel in nature. So you need to have a rather complicated storyline, whereas picture books can just be a very simple and short story.
That's true. And also the vocabulary, the complexity of it is just completely different.
Right.
And also, how can we leave off, Japanese manga? That's something so many people, grow up watching the anime and reading the books. And me and my friends used to get a lot of flack from usually teachers and parents saying that that's not reading. If you think that's, part of completing the reading list of the week, it doesn't count. And I think that's a little bit unfair, actually.
I don't know about Huangshan, but I definitely agree with that. It's not fair because reading is reading. It doesn't matter. As long as you are looking at something and you're using your brain, that's reading.
Yeah.
That's also why I never discriminate against, for example, reading long-form articles on the internet. I consider that reading as well. And also, if you look at blog posts and that kind of stuff, and if you actually go over all the major points and then reflect on what you have just read, that's reading as well. I don't discriminate against any type of reading.
As long as it's reading, not videos. I know the end would most possibly discriminate against those watching videos.
What are you talking about? I watch videos all the time, but
Okay.
mostly TV series and music videos.
I also love reality shows. I think it doesn't matter what format of reading or just like your watching experience. What matters the most is how much you can learn from the time you spend on this material. I think no matter it's manga book or just comics or even just a very stupid romantic novel, you can still learn something from it. It's probably not about some scientific knowledge or it's not some philosophies, but probably you can learn interpersonal skills from a very romantic novel. Who knows? Yeah, and no matter how old you are, you don't think the graphic novels or just the picture books are too old for you. You're grown out of it. I don't agree with that as well. And because I think my favorite novel is The Little Prince. And no matter how old you are, you will have a different interpretation of the novel. I think that's the charm or the magic of graphic novels. It's like it gives you the fresh ideas every time you read it. You open the book, you will read it in a different way. That's what we want. It's a learning process.
Yeah, it's really interesting, our reading experience, illustration involved or not. And in those days when I used to buy Japanese manga books, using up all my allowance and also lending it to my friends, so I become the most popular girl in the class for the week. And and the title kind of shifts because other people will upstage me pretty much, but it was so much fun. And I remember because back then a lot of the translation from Japanese to Mandarin came from Taiwan. And then I remember just subconsciously my friends and we sort of started using some lingo or vernacular from more of like the Taiwan Mandarin, and it's not what we use in Beijing twang for sure. And it was really interesting how language also sort of travels and develops in that sense. And we have had so much fun talking about reading that
martial arts.
We have the martial arts subject for a different day, I guess. And thank you so much for joining us in the studio in person. Liu Yan, so good to see you again.
The pleasure is all mine.
And it's so great to have Huangshan in the studio as always. And we'll see you again on Roundtable. Bye, guys.
Want to learn about world affairs in a more laid-back and accessible manner? Join insiders, experts, and analysts in the casual setting of the chat lounge to hear their personal experiences and opinions on major events and hot issues. Subscribe to Chat Lounge for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.